Matt, MKS Performance here. Got a good opportunity here to kind of show you the differences between the old 1.820 valve camshafts and the 2 litre TFSI camshafts. One in the background here, this is the old 3 inlet valve per cylinder arrangement versus the 2 inlet valve per cylinder arrangement with the TFSI engines with the extra camshaft lobe for the high pressure fuel pumps. I'd like to show you the differences between the hydraulics. Obviously maintaining zero valve clearance obviously is quite operating, less maintenance involved throughout service life versus tappets, which need constant attention. And every 5,000 miles you need to adjust your valve clearances. Obviously with high revving engines you tend to go with solid lifters. With everyday run-of-the-mill stuff you've got hydraulics. Just wanted to point in fact, because of the Gulf GTI Edition 30 that we're working on, we're rebuilding the head because the customer had a bit of a whoopsie daisies changing gear. Rather than going from second to third, he went second back into first, consequently over revving the engine. As a result of that, 7 out of the 8 inlet valves were badly bent. We had to hammer them out the valves guides, and more importantly the camshafts are twisted because of the sheer impact of valve contact with pistons and so forth. Want to show you the differences mainly between the 1.820 valve inlet camshaft and the 2 litre TFSI inlet camshaft. The cam lobes for the TFSI camshafts are sweated on at the factory, whereas the good old-fashioned cast machined 1.820 valve camshafts are actually quite solid, quite heavy, versus the hollowed out, cheaper production, I would say, is the polite way to describe it. It's cheaper to mass produce. The cam, like I said earlier, the cam lobes are sweated on in the factory. As a result of an impact with either a snap belt or an over-revved engine, the inlet valves will put tremendous amount of strain on the cam lobes, and they tend to move out of alignment, out of orientation, which effectively untimes the engine. But there are no timing alignment marks on these camshafts, and there's very little information to go by from the dealership, and you won't know the camshaft twisted until you actually install everything back in the engine and start the engine, and then you'll probably find that timing is running like crap or you bend another valve. So we'll go through the hydraulics, the main differences. With the 2 litre TFSIs, you have a roller arm arrangement. So this is the roller arm. You have a bearing journal here which runs along the camshaft, the working surface here. Then you have your hydraulics, and then you have the retainer clasps which sit here. And what they do is they hold the hydraulic into the roller arm. Obviously at high revving applications or incidents, that becomes detached, and then this gets wedged up against the wall of the inside the head and jams, which obviously contacts the pistons with the valves, and then makes a very expensive mess. But what I wanted to point out, the differences: the old 1.820 valve, 1.820 valve hydraulics. This is inlet, but the inlet and exhaust hydraulics, so they're all the same. And that's the 2 litre TFSI. That's a bit better. Now, when getting replacement hydraulics from the dealership or the TPS or wherever you get them from, the hydraulics, you'll notice, are locked. You see how I can't compress that? Same again with the TFSI one. It's physically locked, or otherwise known as jacked up. Whenever you remove any camshaft from any engine that has hydraulics, the hydraulics instantly become jacked, and you need to relieve that pressure before reinstalling any camshaft back into the engine, or else the valve will sit further down than it should do, which will obviously contact the piston and bend the valve and do some more damage. So in order to release or unjack these hydraulics. Get yourself a small pin, like so. This one's used for clearing dirt out of pressure washer nozzles. With the 2 litre TSFI hydraulics, you have the oil feed hole here, and then you have another hole here for the oil supply. Now, whenever you're reinstalling camshafts back into an engine with hydraulics, you need to drain the hydraulics. And then obviously when you start the car, you need to let the engine run at idle speed for about 30 minutes. Do not rev the engine at all, and this allows the oil feed to supply oil to the hydraulics, allow them to fill up evenly all together. If you don't do that, you will have a jacked hydraulic, and you will have a contact with the piston versus the valve. So in order to release it, get your pin and the hole up inside and feel for like a little ball. The ball inside there is a one-way valve. Again, I can't compress this right now because it's jacked, so we need to install the pin, locate that ball, and then release. See how I can compress it now, and you'll see the oil dripping out. This is just factory supplied oil, so obviously it doesn't rust in transit. Just let that drain for a couple of seconds. That's all you need to do. And now you can see the hydraulic can move freely now. Now we can install it into the roller arm very, very simply. Push in until it clicks. That's it. That's how the hydraulics are held to the roller arms of the TSFI engines. Not very reliable. Well, in high revving applications, it's not as reliable in our opinion as the 1.820 valve engines. And obviously the hydraulics will run along here, and the section of the rocker arm here is in contact with the valve stem, and that will basically up and down, maintaining zero valve clearance, quieter operation, less service requirements, and that's one's freely moving. With the 1.820 valve engines, they're a little bit bigger, a little bit more robust, I would say. Same principles again. Inside there you have a ball. This is just a non-return valve. Again, hydraulic is jacked because we've released tension from the camshaft. This one's out of an old head. If you push, you will see oil that drains out. And you're now able to compress the hydraulic. See? And obviously with the 1.820 valve engines, they have hydraulic buckets. These will run along here directly over the valve, up and down, the valve goes in and out, so forth. You will have residual oil left in the buckets. Drain that, and then obviously with the hydraulic, nice, it moves freely. Insert upside down with the hole, center it up. You shouldn't need a hammer for this. Line it up and push it in, and that's the hydraulic back into the bucket, moving freely as it should. These will slowly fill up when the engine is idling for the first 30 minutes of starting the engine. The oil pump will obviously be supplying oil to various different components of the engine through various different oil galleries. Cannot stress it enough, if you've done any sort of head work to the camshafts, you need to remove the hydraulics, you need to drain them, you need to install them dry or just with a very minute coating of oil on a cotton bud. Reinstall them. Give it, I would say, at least an hour for the hydraulics to settle once you've reinstalled the camshafts. Once you've let that hour pass, then start the car, allow it to idle for, again, another 30 minutes, and this will allow the oil feed to fill the hydraulic buckets, filling them all evenly, which is more importantly, and they will become quieter and should give you many thousands of miles of trouble-free maintenance. Thanks.